In this video, I'm going to show you how you can retire early in just 5 years with $3,500 or less using a step-by-step plan. Let's get into it. First thing before you retire is you got to know how much you need. We need a goal. Most people think that they need some really high number in order to quit their 9-to-5 job. That's usually not the case. You just need to be really clear on what the number is. Otherwise, you can get caught keep trying to increase the number. I used to do this, and I have a friend that used to do this too. I had an investment friend whose goal was once he hit 4K in passive income, he would have quit his job. But instead, he bumped that goal up to 8K. If you ask me, it's because he bought a really nice house and he's thinking about having kids. Those are personal decisions, but now he has to deal with those personal decisions. It's okay if your goals change, but double is a lot more than what we started with. So let's figure out this number. What you need to ask yourself is, how much does it cost you to survive? You want to add up everything like the rent, groceries, subscriptions, utility bills, any other miscellaneous things like clothes and stuff that you buy. Whatever all of this stuff costs is what it costs you per month to survive and what's going to prevent you from being financially free. Let's take a quick example. Let's say rent costs $1,000 a month. You got subscriptions like $300 a month. You get groceries like $600 a month. Let's say your phone bill is $100 a month. And then let's say you got another $500 just on miscellaneous stuff. That's $2,500 total. But that's not it, right? Let's say you wanted to have another $1,000 a month just so you could save to invest. So that brings us to $3,500. And then let's say you want another $1,000 to just spend on fun. This way you can enjoy life now that you'll be financially free. If that's the case, that totals us up to $4,500 of income in order for you to retire. Now, $4,500 is only a $70K salary in some of the highest tax states. And you can achieve that $70K in less than 5 years through real estate investing, but we'll talk more on that later. On the other side of this board, there's a whole plan on how you get there. All right, so we're done with step one, which is to figure out how much you need. The next thing we got to figure out is what method you're actually going to use to get there. So step two is what method you will use. There's many ways to retire early, right? There's people who make money in drop shipping and Amazon FBA and real estate and crypto and stocks and you name it, there's a way to retire early. But the key thing is you want to look for the investment that gives you the highest return for the lowest amount of risk. If you have something with higher returns, you can get money quicker. And if you get the money quicker, then you can reinvest that money quicker. Then you can use that money again to buy another property or buy more assets, and then you can keep compounding on itself to allow you to get financially free quicker and out of our jobs that we love so much quicker. But we also want something that is low risk. One way to measure risk in the stock market and investing world is called beta. Beta is how volatile a specific sector is compared to the overall market. So for example, you can look at gold, or you can look at real estate, or you can look at tech companies and compare how volatile those assets are to what the overall stock market would be. So if the beta score is really high, that's really bad. Usually anything over 1 is bad because it's more volatile than the stock market. Anything less than 1 is good because it's less volatile than the stock market. Residential real estate has a 54% beta factor, which actually is half, right? It would be a 0.54 out of 1. That means it's half as volatile as the stock market. Now that's really good because that means you don't got to worry about your portfolio dropping by 40% like it did in February of 2020 when they heard about the thing that came and changed the world. So you got to choose which method is best for you based on the high returns and high risk. So let's go over each individual one. In terms of high returns, on the low end we have bonds because they typically give you barely enough interest, sometimes less than inflation. Stocks, on average, you'll get 5 to 8% depending on what you're investing in. There's ways to increase that high return if you are investing in specific sectors and they do really well. Crypto, on the other hand, is brand new, so we don't have a lot of long-term history. If you invested in certain coins, you would have gotten really, really high returns. That's where crypto millionaires come from. If you didn't invest in a lot of the good coins, you can end up losing a lot of return. Real estate, on the other hand, I really like, and obviously I'm biased towards, but it allows you to get a really high return for something that you don't have to fully be in, which I really like. Business, on the other hand, which is what I'm doing here by teaching you guys. Business has a really high return, especially if you're the owner, but usually it has a really high risk. Business has the highest risk because I think it's 95% of all businesses fail in the first 5 years, which makes it really difficult for you to do it. Crypto, it has high risk because again, we don't have a long-term trajectory. We don't know if the technology will be used or which of the coins will be used. I think it will be used. We'll see. Stocks, because One company, again, can have super high volatility and it can drop overnight. And if you're invested in one company versus the whole stock exchange, like S&P 500, you end up losing out. Real estate, again, you can minimize your risk a lot by making sure you do the numbers ahead of time. That's why I really like real estate, is I could run the numbers today and it'll show me what I'll make tomorrow. And then you have bonds. Really, really low risk. The only way the bond will fail is if the government behind the bond will fail. Now, this whole thing is based on my opinion and my experience. I choose real estate because I think it's the best combination between high return and high risk. So at this point, you got to ask yourself, what is the best investment for me? Bonds, stocks, crypto, real estate, business, or some sixth option that I haven't discussed here. You got to balance out between what you can deal with in risk and what you can deal with in reward. All right, so now if you've chosen an investing method, we have to go on to step 3, which is the last step. Okay, so step 3 then is to write a detailed plan. Right now, I have outlined a detailed plan in 5 years for you to take $3,500 of your own money and use that to invest in real estate and become a millionaire with almost a 6-figure salary at the end of it. So let's look at year 1. Year 1, you have $3,500. And what you're gonna do with that $3,500 is you're gonna use an FHA loan and put 3.5% down on a property. That allows you to do something called house hacking. Let me break down what house hacking and an FHA loan is. An FHA loan is a government-backed loan that if you live in the property, you can use 3.5% down. You have to live there for 1 year minimum. That's it. You can move out. Now, house hacking is when you buy a property and you live in part of the property and you rent out the other part of the property to other people. So you can live in one bedroom and rent out the other bedrooms, or you can live in one unit and rent out the other units. This allows you to pay down your mortgage so you can live rent-free. That is the great part. People that are renting the house will be paying rent to you and you'll be living rent-free. So you can buy a $100,000 house with 3.5% down, but most of you are probably going to be like, Antonio, you need closing costs for a property like this. You're right, but one way you could reduce your closing costs is by using seller-paid closing costs. Let me give you an example of how this works. If we're buying a $100K house, and that's how much it's worth, you probably pay about $5,000 in closing costs. So if you want to spend less money on your down payment and closing costs, what you need to do is make an offer for $105K. 5K over asking because we're using 5K for the closing costs. And in the contract, in the offer you put out, you ask the seller to pay your closing costs. Now the seller doesn't actually have to pay that money out of their own pocket. Instead of at the closing table, they get paid by the bank for a little bit higher of a purchase price. Then there's one way to do this without even having to pay the down payment. You can use a down payment assistance program. This is a loan or a grant that the government gives you up to 5% of the down payment on your property. Now, there's some requirements to meet this, but if you live in the property for a certain amount of time and usually make a little bit less than what the high income would be in that area, you'll be okay. And so for example, in Texas, I'm doing a down payment assistance program right now for $112,000. If you make less than that, you can get into a property and have them pay your down payment. So if you combine these two strategies, it can be a really good way to get a down payment down to zero. I'm actually trying to do this right here in Austin now with the house hack. So I'm combining down payment assistance with a seller paid closing costs. All right. But what if homes aren't that cheap where you live? What can you do? I got a few options for you. The first thing you could do is look at the suburbs around the city that you're in. Like literally open up Google Maps and then like move the map and keep looking until you see cities where the home prices are cheaper and the rent prices are higher. Do this for every expensive part of the city or wherever the city center is. Second way is if you still can't find any cheap areas around your city, you can move to another city for a short period of time. You can do it in year 1 and year 2 and that's it. As long as you have a remote job, you should be able to do this. And a lot of people have remote jobs now. Third thing you can do is you can just save more money, right? It takes more time and it might take you a while to get started. But if you have 3.5K for every $100,000 of what a house is worth in your area, it may only take you 10 grand or 15 grand to buy a house near you. And then the fourth thing is you could try to use a down payment assistance program to help cover that down payment. All right, back to the plan. So year 1, you just buy this first property, you house hack it, so you're living rent free. And we're gonna assume that you spend $1,000 a month on rent and you'll be saving that by owning the property. All right, let's move over to year 2. In year 2, you're gonna move out of the first property and you're gonna rent it out, okay? That's perfect because you're now going to make money, $500 a month from that first property you just rented out. You're then going to buy a second property that you're going to house hack and you're going to do it with a 5% down mortgage because you can only use an FHA once while you have an FHA out and you're a first-time home buyer. Then you're going to take the extra $1,000 you saved every single month from the last year and use it to buy a third property using a hard money loan. And you're going to be doing that using the BRRRR strategy. A hard money loan is a loan you can use to buy a property with 10% down that has a higher interest rate and a short term to pay it back, like 18 months versus 30 years with the normal loan. But it allows you to get a property with less money, and they give you money to fix up the property. This is totally worth it if you do your math right. The BRRRR strategy stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So you're gonna buy a property, you're gonna get a contractor to fix it up, then you're gonna rent it out at full market rent because now it's gonna be a fully fixed up property. Then you're gonna go over to a bank and do a refinance. And that refinance is gonna help you pay off the hard money loan, and you can take that money to repeat again. All a refinance is, for all of you that are new, is a mortgage on a house that you already own. Normally when you buy a house, you get a mortgage and the bank gives you money to then pay off the person that you're buying the house from. But in this case, if you own the house already, they give you the money to do the refinance. This way you can use that money to pay off the hard money loan because of its high interest rates and its short loan term payment. The best part about this BRRRR strategy is it allows you to use the same group of cash, the same $15,000 over and over and over again to buying properties. Now let's move on to year 3. So in year 3, you're gonna move out of that first house and you're gonna rent it out. Now that property is gonna be making you $500 a month on top of the first one and the third one. You're gonna take all that money you're making and the money you've been saving and use it to buy 4 properties with hard money loans. At the end of this year, you're gonna have 7 properties. You're gonna be making $42K in passive income, and your net worth will be around $395. At this point, with the $42K that you're making in income, you've already covered most of your cost of living that you would have for a property, and you're gonna be pretty set off. But let's add some more to it over the next 2 years. So year 4 rolls around, you're gonna take that cash that you've been saving and making, and then you're gonna buy 5 more properties with the BRRRR strategy. You're gonna use this all with $12,000 down per property. At the end of this year, you'll have 12 properties, $73K in passive income, passing your goal finally, and have a net worth of $808,000. But let's say you wanna become a millionaire, so you keep at this for 1 more year, even though you're already financially free. So in year 5, you slow down a bit, you end up buying 3 properties with the BRRRR strategy, all with $12,000 down. At the end of this year, you'll have 15 properties making you $94K a year and a $1.14 million net worth. This way you can finally retire from that job. Now, just like every plan, there were some assumptions that I had to make in order for this to happen. Let me go over a few. One, that you can pull off seller paid closing costs and down payment assistance potentially in year 1. And year 2, you'll have no problem getting the loan. That usually means that you probably need a job to start off and a decent credit score. I'm just gonna be transparent here about what I'm doing. This also takes into consideration that when you're buying these properties, you're fixing up the equity to make you $45,000 in forced appreciation, which is not impossible. In fact, I've done it already multiple times. So really important for you to be able to do. But just like every plan, it doesn't matter what the assumptions are or what we did. What matters is, are you gonna take action on this? One thing that might change is if you buy more expensive houses, you may have more equity, but you might have less cash flow. And if you buy cheaper houses or better deals, you might have more cash flow sooner and less equity. It ultimately depends on how much money you got to start, your credit score, what kind of rates you're getting, and where you end up investing. This plan was designed to help people with very little money, so it feels attainable for anyone and everyone who wants to become financially free. I'm currently working on this. I'm on year 2, but my plan is just a little bit different than this one. Now, if you want to see how much money that I'm making from my 5 rental properties, make sure to click the video on screen, and I'll see you over there where I break down every single cent and dollar that I make from all the properties and how much they cost me. See you over there.